Hey guys, now I am with Andrew, who was an AFL or VFL at the time. He was an umpire, and I thought it'd be interesting because it's always good to learn from other sports, and as a referee in football myself, it's always good to think, what can I do better and what can I pick up? How are you doing, Andrew? It's the afternoon over there and it is early in the morning over here. How are you doing? You doing good?
Great, mate. Very cold here at the moment, 11 degrees. Sun's setting, but it's nice.
Poor you. Try being in my country. Andrew, can you just describe what level you refereed and umpired at, and what sort of positions you took?
Yep. Yeah, I started off as a 16-year-old running local umpiring boundary line for suburban leagues. Then I was invited to go to a senior level. That was another suburban league. And then I was invited to go up to the VFL, which then later became the AFL. So I became a VFL cadet umpire. And at that stage, you umpire in the country, you go away weekends. I was an inaugural umpire in the Women's Football League 30 years ago.
Brilliant.
Their first year, where the girls used to wear makeup and stockings. No joke.
Different times. Yeah, different times.
And now it's, yeah. But, saw a lot. Got beaten up once, junior football level. Kid got 10 years suspension for that. Oh. So, yeah, interesting.
So, I'll start with a question. I'm going to interrogate you. First of all, so I've done one of these chats with a rugby referee, and one of the things I asked first of all was, why did you start refereeing? What made you referee instead of, say, playing? For me, for example, it was because of injuries and I couldn't play anymore, and I wanted to still be a part of the game. For you, what was it that made you become an umpire?
Well, I did play junior football, Australian rules, and as a family thing, my older brothers shifted to an adult competition, and it was too hard for my family to do both, so I followed them. Couldn't play as a kid, so I just ran the boundary line, a linesman type role. Got pretty good at it, and I got invited to other competitions to umpire, and then became professional. You get paid to umpire. So I did try going back to AFL playing football, but didn't enjoy it as much as umpiring.
So I think sometimes different personalities. Being a referee, you almost need a different personality to a player, and I think sometimes for me, I've almost got a little bit of a short man syndrome. It's sometimes quite nice to have the power. Now, granted, in football, sometimes it feels like we've got no power at all. But it takes a different type of person sometimes to be a referee. And you quite often find that in football. Now, a question I would have is, in AFL, I'll be generic and say AFL if that's okay, because I think that's probably what most people will understand. Do you have many players that become umpires? Because in football, we don't. In rugby, they do.
Yeah. Usually, if they can't finish football, AFL, injury-wise, they will take up umpiring. And they have invited some footballers because the ranks of the umpiring pool is diminishing because of the abuse at junior level and suburban level.
Okay, so at the lower levels especially, you are still getting the abuse. There is still it's not good, I assume then.
No, kids that are coming in, I hear stories now that kids going in at 15, 16 umpiring, under 10s or under 14s, junior, are getting abuse from parents, and I think it's a growing problem, across the board.
They must be watching too much football. They must be watching too much of our football, because that's what happens. That is, and it's finding a way. what I find is, because obviously football, soccer is huge. It is huge. Not necessarily in Australia, but it's still there. And the problem is that the children are watching, say, the Premier League. All right, I don't. You need to live under a rock not to know about the Premier League, I think. And that's what kids watch. Kids don't go and watch a local level game. They watch the Premier League, and they see the abuse that the referees in football are getting. So what do? They think it's acceptable.
Yeah, you're right.
But however,
Yeah.
but looking at Aussie rules, when I've been watching, so I've watched, I don't know, 4 or 5 live games now, and you never really see much abuse to the referees at the top level. So why is it? So I've given the reason possibly why there's abuse at youth level in football, but in Aussie rules, that link isn't necessarily the same. So why do you think that would? Why do you think in youth level, the abuse is there?
There's no real control over what happens on the day. An umpire can't go. Well, they can send players off for abuse, but if it's coming across the boundary line, you have to make a report to the local league, and then they have to investigate, and there might be punitive damages. In the AFL, in the senior, what you see on the television, there's a rule that only the captain can question an umpire's decision.
So similar
If
with
a
rugby.
player, yeah, and if a player that isn't the captain starts questioning, the umpire just says, go away, don't ask. And if they continue, they'll either get a 50-metre penalty or free kick awarded against them, or again, punitive damages after the game.
Okay, so yeah, so maybe there's less. I understand, because actually when your kid is playing, you've got that bias kind of nature, haven't you? But maybe there's not enough of maybe at that level there's not enough backing of the referee umpire, or there's not enough punishment at the lower level maybe that you have at the top. Because I perfectly appreciate, and I really actually like the fact that in the AFL there is the big suspensions. There is the big, and that is the one thing I think is fantastic. That I honestly think that is great, because it shows that the governing body cracks down on the bad behaviour after
They're aware of it
after the game anyway. We won't necessarily directly. I said we won't directly talk about what I think about red cards, how they're needed, but. Is there anything then in AFL or Aussie rules in general that you think should be implemented, changed? Any laws that you think are just, it may be outdated or whatnot? Is there anything that you think?
I would like to go back to the old days. It's a little sterile now, where umpires and players don't talk. In my day, there was a lot of banter that people didn't hear. The umpires weren't mic'd up. And you could say stuff. You could say, "Come on, I can see you're acting. Pull the other one, mate." And you get a bit of a laugh, and the rapport would be on a personal level, so that I think there was a little bit of respect going both ways. Now it's the umpire is a paid official that you can't speak to, and it's very sterile, except Razor Ray.
So I completely agree. I when I did the Razor Ray video, I love the fact that he looks like a human. He's a part of the game, and we get this. We've got characters in football, referees, who some people hate it. Some people hate that the referee is coming out, and looking like a person who has a personality. But I think it's great, because that person is a human who is part of the game. It shows that he can make mistakes. But like you said, sometimes having that banter with players, because that's what it is, it's banter, and sometimes it's sarcasm. I'm quite a sarcastic referee. If someone's an idiot on the pitch, I will quite often be sarcastic. And actually, sometimes it's a good way to discipline the players, and it makes them realise they are being stupid. If I'm given a stupid response, it's because they're being stupid, and they sometimes quickly shut up. But yeah, I honestly think that you need these characters. even if it's on just the side of the umpires and the referees are human, and it makes the audience realise that actually they are a part of the game. They sometimes make mistakes, and it gives them almost a little bit of reasoning to why they make mistakes. But referees have personalities. They're not robots.
No.
Why are they not allowed to show that?
And they don't want to go out and change the outcome of a game. If they miss something, it's human error. If a football player misses a goal, that's human error. Or if a goalie misses a catch, that's human error. But that's okay. But if an umpire or a ref misses a decision, all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, the referee is a biased, and he's a, swear words. Yeah, I
see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it almost spells a little bit from. This is the one thing that I think is really similar with football and Aussie rules is that the fans are so tribalistic. It's so much tribalism, and I don't necessarily think the Aussies realise how similar it is with football and Aussie rules. When I was
we know that the Premier League is quite vicious.
Yeah, it can be. As I said, I'm a Southampton supporter, and we hate Portsmouth. We hate Portsmouth. They are scum of the earth. But sometimes the tribalism it creates the lack of respect for the other teams, lack of respect to the referee. It's not good, and I what I love about rugby, for example, that I'm starting to learn about is whether they win or lose, both teams make a tunnel and clap the other teams off the pitch, because there is tribalism, granted, because you support a team, but you love the sport more, and little things like that add to the sportsmanship is fantastic. And how good would things like that be in football and in Aussie rules, being able to clap the other team off the pitch? But you won't get it because the fans would go absolutely mental and be like, how dare they clap the other team off the pitch? It can be
another
nasty.
good thing in my time. A great thing in my time was that after the game, the players would come together at the home team's social rooms, and the umpires and the refs would be invited back for a beer. And you'd get glares from some people, and other guys would crack jokes, and in the end, it just breaks the ice. And when you see them the next time, they'll have a bit of a joke.
Yeah,
that's gone.
Yeah. I think at certain levels you get that in football, but I think with some of the behaviour of the footballers, that can make it very awkward. There have been times when, at certain level, if it's for example in football where you've got the middle referee and the two linos, in one of those games you normally go back into their clubhouse for a drink afterwards. There's been plenty of times I have not wanted to go in that clubhouse because you have received so much abuse that wouldn't be legal outside of that football pitch, and you do not want to go back into that clubhouse. Are there any stories, any interesting stories, or any strange incidents that you can think of in your time?
Apart from getting bashed once by a 16-year-old junior footballer.
He wasn't bigger than you, was he?
No, he was. They were pretty big, the kids back then. No, he was smaller than me, and it was just a trivial thing. Gave him, it's equivalent to a 50-metre penalty. He wouldn't come back on the mark, and I gave him another one. And next thing, I'm getting boxed around the ears. Poor kid just lost it.
I love how you just said poor kid lost it. I wouldn't be saying poor kid lost it. I would be saying what a little arsehole, or something stronger if he's just clouted me one. What are there any memorable players that people would that people would know
Yeah.
that you refereed and stood out?
Yeah. Well, all the Collingwood fans out there would remember the Rocker brothers, Anthony and Severio Rocker. I umpired them in junior and then again in under 18s in the VFL. And those guys at 16 stood 6 foot tall. And against little midgets that were 5 feet, they dominated. And you can look them up. They were actually, one of them, Severio, went on to play NFL football in America as a kicker.
Okay.
So watching, and there are a few other. I'm just trying to think of Wayne Carey was another one I saw. He's a very he's a commentator now. He's a famous Northumberland footballer. Mick Gayfer, I knew Mick Gayfer personally. He was a Collingwood grand final player. So
can I just say to any viewers, right? I understand the hate in Collingwood, right? This is I'm probably going to have in the comments. What's he talking about Collingwood? Those are, you know. Yeah, sorry guys, but the first person I've interviewed is a Collingwood supporter.
I'm a nice guy.
The comments.
I'm a ref.
They don't think you're a nice guy. They're not going to think you're a nice guy. If you support Collingwood, sorry. The comments are going to be blowing off with expletives. So I warn you, don't get offended by these horrible people.
Nah. Rob, I tell you, I've heard it all, and I swear I laugh at most of it because it's like you just understand why it's coming. I'll tell you another story about women's league.
Yes, please
if
do.
I can.
Yes, please do.
Inaugural year 30 years ago, it wasn't. They weren't as fit as they are now. As I mentioned to you before, they used to wear, some wear stockings, some wore makeup. But I was a young cadet umpire at the time, and in those days you had to get the team sheets from the teams and you'd sign off.
Yeah.
And I remember in the men's, you just go in, or they come and give you the team sheets. I had to go get the team sheets, and I'm knocking on the door, and I got a response. And I was just 18 years at the time, and that's like, who is it? And I said, oh, it's the umpire. Come to get the team sheets. And they said, oh, we're having a shower. Come on in.
Yes. Or is it a bad thing?
Well, it scared the crap out of me. So.
God.
But it was a lot of fun.
Is there, so you said football-wise you support Celtic.
Yeah.
Is there, so I don't know how much you would necessarily focus and watch a referee during the game. Now, because I am a football referee, I look at sports a different perspective now. I look at my own sport in a different perspective because I'm a referee. So I look at the referees from rugby, I look at the referees now from AFL, and I see what they're doing, and as I said, I'm trying to see if there's anything I can put into my game. And there was quite a lot of things I can take from rugby and put into football to improve my game, to try and get more discipline, and things like that. Is there anything you would pick out from a football referee that you could possibly, if you were still umpiring, you could put into your game? You can say no. That's absolutely fine.
I think being, forthright and not accepting any abuse. I think I saw one of the games recently where the ref just put his hand up. A player came in to argue with him, and he just put his hand in his face and just go away. I think there needs to be more of that, being able to stand up for yourself. And if they've got the power to say, yellow card, shut your gob, that would, I think you would see the celebrity footballers then tone it down a little bit, because I think it's theatre for those guys as well.
Mm-hmm. I think, so I like, putting it on the other foot, I think I hear, and so I think it's hard to see, but I know a lot of people in the comments say how fit the AFL umpires are. They have to travel long distances. Obviously, the field pitch, whatever you want to call it, is a lot bigger. And so I do hear they do a lot of mileage, basically, during a game.
20 to 30 Ks. Yeah,
it's quite a lot. However, I think it's hard to see that, actually. When you're watching, it's hard to see, because bearing in mind there are 3 middle umpires, aren't there? If I'm right.
Yeah, three
So
central. Yeah,
yeah,
three central guys.
so I actually think it's quite difficult when you're watching to see how far they're travelling. However, you don't often see them standing still, which is interesting. Whereas in so the fitness is it must be there for those middle umpires, for sure.
Yeah.
I wish I had a decent fitness. That's another story, but
Stop eating Milo.
I think what I think difference is slightly in football refereeing and Aussie rules umpiring. I think, and Gareth, the rugby referee, when I chatted to him, he said very similar with rugby. Is in football you have to make very quick split decisions. You have to be quick and make your mind up in what you give because it is fast paced. There aren't many stoppages. It's similar to AFL. There aren't many stoppages. You know, you have to. If you see a foul, you give it almost instantly. Whereas in AFL, I don't think there are as many fouls even needed to be given. There are a lot more reasons for free kicks and fouls and things in football. In AFL, it's without disrespect, it's more of a free for all. And that's not trying to be disrespectful, but I'm saying there's less laws for fouls. I know you've, for example, got the foul of if a mark's coming down and the player pushes the player directly in the back, that's obviously a foul. But that's normally pretty easy to see. And so there's less to give. So I think that is the challenge of a football referee that an AFL umpire doesn't quite have. What do you think about video assistant referees? Let's bring up that subject.
I think they're necessary in the echelon, the higher football competitions because there's a lot of money at stake. Betting is a big deal, and if it helps the ref to gain some power, I know they say that disempowers cricket umpires because they're referring to the cameras every time, and you start questioning yourself. But I think if you're using it to back up your decisions, it's more empowering for a ref.
For sure. I think so when I've brought this up in other videos, instantly the response is in comments is talking about football as in soccer VAR. Please never use VAR as an example because it is a disaster. They've tried rewriting the wheel. Look at TMO in rugby because it works alongside the referees. The referee is always in communication with the video assistant. They talk through decisions. When there is a decision, it goes onto the stadium monitor. Everyone can see it, and it's fantastic. It's a nice, quick decision. And it's getting the decision right, and they get the decision right 99% of the time, I would think. But in football, soccer, it's different because they are looking for offsides where it is literally millimeters. They're trying to work out millimeters, how can you? They can't do that because the technology can't do millimeters. So
camera angles. How do you get the camera angles?
Exactly, but I think I think AFL would be more similar to rugby because you're not doing millimeters, you're looking for fouls, you're looking for balls if it's crossed over the line, or from what I'm seeing at the moment is if the ball has touched a player before it's gone over the goal line. Well, actually, that's fairly simple for them to do. However, at AFL, I think the camera technology for the goal line decisions is dreadful. I don't know about you, but it is literally like the cameras are from back in the 90s. It's
a joke. You're right.
The ball is so blurry. How can you see if it's touched it when it literally like a ball of fluff because it's so blurry. So I think that is
buy some GoPros.
Even that would be a better job, wouldn't
it?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I think that's the one thing. That is one thing that needs to be changed. Last thing I want to talk about. I don't want it to go on too far. 24 minutes in. So looking at the league structure of AFL, there isn't much room for AFL to grow. A little bit like the American sports. You've got the draft system, you've got a closed shop. Your league is a closed shop. and teams have to fight. And we know there's a Tasmanian team that wants to get in. And I actually hear in my comments today that I think a Tasmanian team is getting accepted. I think.
Correct. There's a lot of talk, and money. Yeah.
Now, what do you think? So I come up with the concept because I'm from Europe and I know football. The pyramid system in football, and the pyramid system in football isn't just 1, 2, 3 leagues. It is a lot, all the way
divisions,
all the way down, and it's a pyramid. So basically, at local levels, there's more, and then they go up. And now, for AFL to grow, which I don't think it can do at the moment, I thoroughly believe it needs to have a pyramid system so that money can trickle down further. Plenty of people disagree. Yeah. That's cool. That's fine. What's your opinion? What do you think could be implemented for not just the AFL, because the AFL is just the top division. What do you think could be implemented for Aussie rules to get bigger, be more global, have more financial, more of a financial backing almost? Especially for those lower clubs. Is there anything you think?
And look, I agree, because I like the pyramid system because we've had that here. At local levels, there have been divisions where, A grade, B grade, C grade. If you win the C grade final, the two playing off go up a grade.
Yeah.
That's been in AFL for a long time. In AFL, as the premier competition, it's hard because emotion is bound to a lot of these clubs, like South going to Sydney and North Melbourne. They're just everyone's little can that gets kicked around because they don't have the money. But then the AFL will pump money into the likes of Gold Coast and GWS that don't have football backgrounds. Those states aren't AFL. They're rugby union, they're rugby league states. Tassie has been a pool for AFL players for decades. So I would rather them get rid of Gold Coast, because Brisbane's doing fine. Put the money into a Tassie team. No one's going to cry over Gold Coast not being in the AFL. Honestly, but if you kick out they'll just go back to the beach and pull another bunny and coat. So don't worry about it.
Don't go to the stereotypes. Don't do this Aussie stereotypes, all right?
Don't get me started on Sydney siders. But no, Tassie deserves Sydney a fair weather fans. They only go when the Sydney Swans are winning. Otherwise, they're on the harbour on the yachts, or at the polo.
No local rivalries or anything. Then, all right. You're going to get even more hate. You're going to get even more hate now. Be prepared.
Bring it.
Yeah. It's interesting. So you think? Do you think that there's money in the game, but it's not being put in the right places?
Oh, definitely. The AFL control the purse strings, and last year was an anomaly because of COVID. Players took pay cuts.
Right that year off. Yeah, right that year off in most sports. I think. Yeah.
But the AFL, because ball sponsorship is a big deal now. A couple of years ago, the AFL said, you know what, you clubs on your game day, you can have your ball sponsor and take in whatever money you want. So that was great for the smaller clubs, St Kilda, North Melbourne. But then recently they just said, you know what, we're going to take it back. We're going to have McDonald's as the premier ball sponsor. So those clubs get nothing. They've just been shafted. So unless they're giving money back to these clubs, it's disappointing. They should give them some autonomy, give them some power. The AFL is a bureaucracy.
This is one of the things that in football, as in soccer, we've got a big problem because the money's gone out of control because there's no constraints, there's no wage budgets, there's no wage restrictions, there's no transfer restrictions. So in a sense, it's just gone too far. Whereas it seems that AFL and the American sports with the draft systems have not gone far enough to help the teams. It's almost that the leagues run everything, and yes, it makes sense. It does make sense, but you should still, as a club, you should. And I love the fact that you've got members, and your club is run by the members. I love that. That's fantastic. So, but if they find a way to make more money, they don't it's almost like they don't get to earn that and keep that money.
Yeah.
And how can a club grow if, like you just said, a club can find a way to make more money, but it's almost taken off them, and the league owns it, and so maybe that is something that I've not necessarily talked about or realised, and the fact and all the subscribers, fans, and whatnot, they don't realise either. Maybe, I don't know, and so it's all well and good saying there's no money going down. When I talk about the pyramid system, everyone said, well, there's no money in the lower leagues. If a team gets relegated, then they can't financially cope. But that's by what I'm hearing from you, is that's down to the league. At the end of the day, the teams will still get the fans. The stadiums, like, they're cricket stadiums, and they are so many fans filling them. Now, granted, that's not the same necessarily all the way down, but that's the same in our football. But there is the money there, surely. But the league is not sharing it. It's like they're holding on to their bags of money. So maybe actually it needs to be looked at the AFL directly on supporting their teams, which maybe they're not. Maybe they've got billions.
They do share the gate receipts.
Share?
So the smaller clubs, well, yeah, they control what amount. So in the big marquee games, like the Dreamtime or the Anzac Day, where you'll get 90,000+ at the games, there's an equalisation fund that does trickle down to the smaller clubs like St Kilda and North Melbourne, but it's almost like they have to beg for the crumbs. So the teams like Essendon and Collingwood, my team, they get Anzac Day every year, and they've had it since early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So they get the premier, they get a day to themselves, they get the whole of this Victorian crowd to themselves, gate receipts go to them, and I know there's some sharing of that. But, maybe in North Melbourne and St Kilda wouldn't get that. But I think it's unfair that Richmond, Collingwood, Essendon, Carlton get all these games that bring in the crowds, and they're guaranteed money.
I
should be shared around.
Yeah, so I certainly think that if say a team, say the Sydney Swans, for example, they get a 50,000 crowd or whatever, I think they should basically make all of that money, except maybe the away fans, that the away team gets the money. Now, I know yours is done differently in that a lot of teams, for example, play at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which is a strange concept because obviously in football, every team has their own ground. And by doing that, the home club gets the money, basically. And then when you play away, that home club gets the money. It just seems bizarre that you can't earn your own money as a club. That's what it seems.
Clubs do sell their games, like Melbourne has played in Darwin, so they'll sell their home ground game at the MCG, take it to Darwin, and they'll get the sponsorship. There must be extra cash in it for them. And other clubs have gone to New Zealand to play. That fell over. So I think they're always pushing for the dollar. And there were those games back in the past where Collingwood had their ground, Richmond had their ground, Essendon had it. Every club had their ground and had that situation where the gate receipts would be all theirs. Now you've got two main stadiums in Melbourne. Geelong has their own, and then the other states have their own. So it's a bit uneven.
Yeah. So I think really the question then is it's before looking at how to open up the AFL instead of being a closed shop. First of all, I think then it needs to be a subject of how can we fund the clubs better? How can we share the money round better so that the facilities get better, the player standard gets better? everything improves by the money going down. And that was really partly my point of talking about the pyramid system. And because I'm thinking, to improve the game, the money has to go down to lower leagues. By having a lower league club, their facilities improve, they get better players, and therefore it feeds the top teams, and everything feeds up. And that's my main thought on it. And it's how to do it, and I don't have the answers. It's just me chucking an idea out there from what I know of my football. But yeah, we'll leave it there. Lovely to chat to you. It's like I said, it's always interesting to learn new things, and that's why I'm doing what I do. So thank you for your time. Yeah, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry for the hate that you might get. All right.
I'm going to love it. I'll love every minute of it. Don't
Enjoy.
worry about it, Rob.
Yeah. Just reply with sarcastic comments if you like. That's what I do.
But don't forget to click, like, and subscribe to Rob's channel.
Yeah.
Because he's brilliant. You're brilliant, Rob.
So I've stressed this. I'm doing a reaction channel, but I'm trying to explore and learn and look in deeper. Looking at individual players, what makes them special. I've tried looking at the club histories, and looking at trying to make things better, make myself better. Others aren't necessarily. Other reactors are more of a whoa. There's a big hit. Great. What makes it a big hit? What is the techniques of the players, and just trying to do things differently. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it, guys. You know what to do. I'll catch you next time.